Good morning, everyone. My name is Larry Taylor. Welcome to Progressive Oregon, a weekly engagement broadcast on progressive issues in Oregon. I'm here today with my co-host, Betsy Cunningham. Oz, just as a note, I did not hear any sound for the intro, so I want to check that. Just so you know, if we have technical difficulties today and the show ends, what we will do is record it offline and then upload it later. So if it does end prematurely and you still would like to learn about our topics, come back later and the show will be available for you. If you would like to ask questions during today's program, go to the Uphill Media channel in YouTube and type your questions into the chat window, and my co-host Betsy Cunningham will relay those to me, and we will do our best to answer them. We have three topics on our agenda today. Most of our time will be spent talking about the STAR voting system and why we're using it and how that works. We will briefly touch on some new proposed rules for the Democratic Party of Oregon that are working its way through the Rules Committee and how you can get involved if you agree or disagree with them. And then we're going to talk briefly about upcoming events. Unfortunately, my co-host today has not joined the live stream, so I will be giving the presentation on STAR voting, and if she joins us, she can join us in later and add comments. So why are we talking about STAR voting? STAR voting is a newer version of a preferential voting system. And the reason why this is important to us is that the chair of the Democratic Party of Oregon has pledged to use STAR voting for selecting delegates at the 5 congressional district and the at-large delegate selection conventions for who will go to the Democratic National Convention representing Oregon. The original delegate selection plan had specified plurality voting. The plan was amended to strike the specified voting process, which means that none is specified, and we just have a verbal agreement that we're going to be doing STAR voting, and so we have to make sure that that's followed through with. And the real reason why this is important this year is that for the first time since 1968, it is conceivable that we would enter the Democratic National Convention with no candidate having 50% and being the clear winner. And what that means is that then the delegates who are at the convention in Wisconsin next July will be picking the nominee for the Democratic Party. And so who goes will make a big difference. The next slide is about at-large voting. And the reason why I put this text on here is that there's some very important points about this. So, these terms sound very similar, and, you think it's like, Coke versus Pepsi, but plurality voting is also known as at-large block voting. It has been called the oldest trick in the book. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg cited this method along with racial gerrymandering as a preeminent second-generation way to deny equal opportunity for minority voters and candidates. And we'll talk about how that occurs later when we get into the discussion of STAR voting. Interestingly, Congress has banned at-large voting or plurality voting for all federal elections, so you can't even use it in a federal election. It's been discarded by most states. No voting method has been subject to more litigation for its discriminatory impact on local elections. Yet, while the covers are off the discriminatory impact and intent of at-large voting, it persists in hundreds of local jurisdictions. And Betsy was just talking before the show about how in Roseburg, the city council elections use a plurality voting method, and they currently have someone on the city council that was not the choice of the majority, but because 2 other candidates split the preferred vote, the third person got in. So if you have any questions more about what plurality voting and what it is, you're more than welcome to ask. Oz, let's go to the video and share that now. We have a cartoon that talks about voting systems and why STAR voting is a good solution.
America, take a good look at your beloved candidates. They're nothing but hideous space reptiles. It's true. We are aliens. But what are you going to do about it? It's a two-party system. You have to vote for one of us.
You're right. This is a two-party system.
Well, I believe I'll vote for a third-party candidate.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away.
Throwing your vote away is no laughing matter. Voters feel so fed up and disempowered that over 45%.
So star voting STAR is an acronym. It stands for Score Then Automatic Runoff, and that pretty much describes the process. The next slide talks about the situation that Betsy encountered with the Rose City. So if you have two candidates, then it doesn't really matter, because then you only have two candidates and someone's going to get a majority, and so it's very clear who the majority the preference of the majority is. It's a problem when you have more than two candidates, because you could have two candidates, and in this example, one candidate gets 35% of the vote, another candidate gets 25% of the vote, but they're both preferred over the third candidate, but the third candidate gets 40% of the vote. So in plurality voting, the 40% ends up being the winner. So the more candidates you have, the less power your vote has. So if there's only one candidate, then you really don't have a choice, and it's very clear. If you have two candidates, you get a majority, but if you have three or more candidates, then it starts becoming problematic. And then you get the situation on the next slide where you end up voting for the lesser of two evils. So the next slide shows what a star voting ballot looks like. This is similar to what you see in like Amazon for rating books or Yelp. And so what you do is that you rate the candidates, and you rate them on a scale of 0 to 5. So in this case, Princess Leia is your second choice. Your Darth Vader is not preferred, so they get a 0. Luke Skywalker for this ballot is the preferred choice. Han Solo is the second choice, and Chewie is second to last. What's interesting about this, and is differentiated from other preferential voting systems, is that other systems you have to vote, you have to rank them all in order, and then there's a process for switching out ballots if your candidates are not chosen. But this process introduces a second step, which we'll get to in a bit. So what happens when after you fill in your ballot and you turn it in and you've ranked all of your candidates, they take them and they find the two highest scored candidates. So in this example, for round one, Darth Vader got 11,097 votes, and Luke Skywalker got 10,097 votes. And so those are your two highest scoring candidates. And then your vote goes to the finalist that you prefer. So even though perhaps your first choice was Princess Leia, your vote will go to Luke Skywalker, because he's one of the top two finalists. And this is how you use preferential voting for determining the candidate that most people prefer, hence the name. And the next slide is just a graphic. So what star voting does is guarantees a majority preferred winner. So if after you count all of the votes, it ends up that Luke Skywalker gets 60% of the votes and Darth Vader gets 40% of the votes, because the second choice of more people was Luke Skywalker rather than Darth Vader. It took me a week of thinking about this and talking to Sara to wrap my head around this, but I understand it now. The next screen it shows the difference between a star voting ballot and a ranked choice ballot. which is another preferential system. So again, you can in star voting, you just if you desire two candidates equally, then you just rank them equally. If you in ranked choice voting, you have to fill out, for it to truly work, you have to fill out you have to rank all of the candidates, and you have to rank you have to rank them in order, and you can't give two people the same value, because there's ranked choice systems don't have a way of handling that situation. So the next slide talks about some points about star voting. The more data collected and the more data is used, then you get more accurate votes. See if there's any other points. Star voting is counted in 2 rounds only and is used and uses basic addition. So if any of you have ever counted ballots in the other preferential systems, you know how complicated it can be, because you have to look, you have to basically count the ballots up and total up them all. And what star voting allows you to do is focus on the 2 top vote getters, and then just distribute the ballots. And it's a very easy observable process, because you can do this by stacking ballots in front of you rather than doing hashtags or kinds of things that are a little bit more less obvious. So it's easy to monitor the vote counting. So those are all the reasons why star voting is preferable. Another one is another benefit of this is that you don't do multiple rounds of voting. So if you do the traditional way of electing delegates to the state convention, everyone would vote, and then any candidate that received a majority would be a winner. If you're voting for 13 candidates and only 3 received a majority because of the rest of the candidates split the balance of the votes, then you have to go and do another voting cycle. And in a situation where you can have 150 to 200 people voting, each voting cycle could easily take 30 minutes. And if you go through 3 rounds of voting, it could drag out to be an hour and a half. And what you find is that people fill the time with telling jokes or whatever, because all you can do is wait around until you get the results and find out if you can go home and you fill all the slots, or if you still have some slots to fill. With star voting, you just vote once, and because all of your preferences have been ranked, then that is the document that is used for determining all the slots that you fill. So the example on the previous slides was about what you do when you have one candidate that you're electing, or one office to fill. So then the question that you probably have is, well, we will be electing 13 at-large national delegates at the state convention on June 20th, I believe, or June 21st. No, June 20th. And so how does star voting work there? Again, you just rank your candidates. So if there's 40 people running for the 13 slots, you go through and you rank the 40 people and how you prefer them. So the ones that you really, really, really want, you give them a 5, and the ones that you really, really don't want, you give them a 0, and the others go in between. And then you turn in your ballot, and then it's just up to counting the ballots to get the results. No one has to hang around except for the vote monitors to verify that the counting has gone well. What happens when you count up multiple candidates is you use the same process, but you do iterations of it. So if you have 40 people running, you total up all of the people who or the top vote getters, and then you take the two candidates who receive the most, and then you go through the ballots and you find the preference on the rest of the ballots on how they have ranked that one, those 2 candidates. And so the first round is the same as filling 1 candidate position. And then after you determine who the winner is, then you repeat the cycle again, except you take off the winner and then you take the next two candidates who are the top vote getters, and then you total up the second choices and third choices and distribute them amongst the two top vote getters until you have the winner of the second position. And you keep doing this until you get your 13 positions filled. Again, this is all work that occurs when you do the counting, and at the state convention, they'll probably go into a back room and do the counting, because after the delegates, there's still some business that has to occur. So hopefully they will program a dinner break or something to go on in the interim while they determine who actually goes. It's a little simpler for the congressional district conventions, which will happen on June 6th and June 7th, only because there are fewer positions to fill. I believe the largest number of delegates is CD3, and don't quote me on this, I'm relying on my failing memory, but I believe there's 11 delegates that will be chosen. Those 11 will be proportioned out to the candidates that are in the running at that point in time. So say it's Buttigieg, Biden, Warren, and Sanders, then those 11 delegates will be proportioned out to those 4 candidates based on the votes they receive in the primary, and then the caucuses will go off and fill those, and so it'll be somewhere between 4 and 6-ish candidates for that each caucus will actually be voting on. So I hope that is clear. The next slide talks about, wait, you eliminated my first choice but never counted the rest of my rankings. Hey, you're throwing my vote away. This is the situation with typical preferential systems, but not with preferential voting. So they really, if you've ranked the 2 candidates, even though one neither was your first choice, but they were like your 4th and 5th choice, they know who you prefer to the 2 candidates, and then that's who they give your vote to. So you don't actually waste your vote. The next slide shows is a comparison of the various voting systems. Red means bad, green means good. Green means good. Over on the right-hand side is the assessment of the star voting. You can see under the traditional majority vote method, the preferential system. There's one good thing about it, is that the ballots can be tabulated locally, and it's very easy to do. But you just take the results. Ranked choice, star voting seems to address all of the concerns and problems that people have with the other systems, of which there are literally hundreds of the systems that you can choose from. So that is why star voting is gaining in popularity, and why there was a group of people who strongly worked to get the delegate selection process moved to a star voting process. The next slide. This is one of the things I like about Oregon, is because we are often leading in the things that we do, and in this case, Oregon is leading the voting reform movement. I believe we've got this adopted by some of the local governmental bodies in Oregon, which is what really catches the attention of the people nationally who are trying to reform the way we vote. And the rest of the country is watching what we're doing. The next slide is a chart showing election accuracy by voting system. Plurality is the bottom, star voting is at the top line. You can see that star voting ranks really well on election outcomes, and plurality voting doesn't, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg pointed out. If you would like to get more involved in star voting, their website is starvoting.us, and they're, of course, like all organizations, they would appreciate money. So if you would like to throw some money at them, even if it's just $10 or $15, you can do that at starvoting.us/donate. You can sign up for information and help with the movement if you want to get involved in supporting it, and especially if you would like to bring star voting to your local community. Next week here in Clatsop County, we're going to be electing chairs and vice chairs to the county commission. It would be cool if we could use a star voting system, because we would only have to do one round of voting and then we would end up with our officers. But unfortunately, this is something that really needs to be explained to the county commissioners so that everyone is comfortable with the voting method before we introduce it, and that's going to take a little more time. You can use star voting, so there's a tool at star.vote for your meetings and decisions, so you can use this for other things as well. So if you've got like 15 dates that you want to have the holiday party on, you can use star voting to find out the preferred date by the majority of the people. You can like and follow Star Voting on the Facebook page, and you can email them to find a volunteer at join@equalvote.com. Betsy, did we get any questions on the line?
No questions.
Okay, the complete set of videos is on the Star Voting website. So if you would like to see those, and they would also explain the processes to you, just not in the context of the delegate selection process like what we are facing, go to www.starvoting.us/videos, and you can watch the videos there. That's the end of the Star Voting proposal. So again, if you have any questions about this, contact the Star Voting people, and they will be glad to explain it to you. You can also reach me, Larry at uphillmedia.org, and I will get back to you and let you know. The next segment of the show is about some proposed rules for the Democratic Party of Oregon. These have not been considered, so they've just been submitted to the Rules Committee. The situation we have with our Rules Committee is that the members of the Rules Committee are geographically representative of the whole state because they are elected by the congressional districts, but there is no actual linkage because they are voting on behalf of the counties. In the instance of the Rules Committee, only 3 members are in there from the 1st Congressional District, for instance, but there's 5 counties that are in the 1st Congressional District. And so unless someone goes to each of the counties to report back to the county central committees, there is no linkage and way for the members of the Rules Committee to get feedback. In the 1st Congressional District, we like to give reports from the committees. And so when we have our meeting next weekend, we will be talking about the votes that happened at the last Rules Committee meeting and the things that are coming up, so everyone understands what the issues that are being presented to the Rules Committee. And then if anyone wants to give feedback to the Rules Committee, they can contact them. What I did in this presentation is at the end, I have listed the email addresses of all of the Rules Committee members. So if you would like to weigh in on any of these 3 proposals that I'll be talking about today, you're more than welcome to contact your representatives onto the Rules Committee and express your opinion. So we have 3 issues that we are going to be considering at the next Rules Committee meeting on the 18th. The first one is, I don't think will be at all controversial. I believe it was submitted by a member from Multnomah County. And what that does is adds economic status into the bylaws as one of the criteria to be considered. This is not a quota system and should not be used as a quota system, but it encourages people voting for the election of members to the State Central Committee and to the Congressional District Committees to at least take these things into consideration when they vote for them. Again, it is not a quota system, so there's no quota being allocated to economic status, but it's just the idea is this is just something else that you should consider when you are voting for people for these roles. And for those who are not immersed in the minutia of the Democratic Party of Oregon, the State Central Committee membership, which is what the first modification refers to, they are the governing body of the State Central Committee. And so they make the decisions for the Democratic Party of Oregon, either directly or indirectly. The second group, Article 9, refers to the congressional district committees. These are made of elected members from the counties within each congressional district. And so you get a lot of members from, well, actually they're proportioned out by population, and so you roughly get the same number of members in all the congressional district committees. You get a slight bias in Congressional District 2 because it's the 7th largest congressional district in the United States of America, and there's 19 counties in there. And so even though they could be sparsely populated like Gillum County, they still get a minimum number of delegates to the congressional district committees, which is the committee that elects members to the standing committees, which are rules, platform and resolutions, fair, credentials, and I believe there's one more. The second change is about committee reports at the State Central Committee meeting. What we have experienced over the last couple of years is things being referred to committees, but we don't hear back for months and months on what the committee is doing. And so this is not a bylaws change, it's a standing rule change. But it requests that all committees to which issues have been referred prepare a written report at each meeting of the State Central Committee of the actions taken and status of each of the issues, so people can understand what progress is being made and what direction they're going in. Again, I don't foresee any opposition to this one. This is just the kinds of things that you would expect to happen anyway, and this is just creating a standing rule to ensure that they would happen. The third one is very interesting because it's a proposed ban on the video recording of State Central Committee meetings. We have the Democratic Party of Oregon records all the meetings, and that becomes their record of what transpired. If there's any question about what the minutes should say. We have found that the Democratic Party of Oregon leadership seems to consider that their possession, and it is very difficult for people to get access to it. They have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and I don't know what it is that they're agreeing not to disclose because it was a State Central Committee that was being reviewed, but and then they have to go and view it if they want to review any of the business that happened in the meeting. What has happened over the past couple of meetings is that people have started recording the business themselves. And so one of the things recorded was the second quarter meeting of 2019 that went on for 5.5 hours, and you can see what went on at that meeting. And it really gives you insight into the performance of the elected officials that are representing you within the Democratic Party of Oregon. We've had people do 360, start doing 360 recordings. And so you can get access to those much more easily than you can to the recording by the Democratic Party of Oregon. And you can take clips out and show what people have done. And this has been very helpful because it increases the transparency of what goes on inside the party. And you don't have things going on as if it was in a secret priesthood. 2 meetings ago, we had a sequence of motions to end debate before debate even started. This is the kind of thing that people find difficult to believe, and yet if you have video, you can show them. This is where they have started debate. Someone jumped up and said, I move to call the question, and 2/3 of the State Central Committee votes to end debate before debate has even started. That is, the ability to debate is one of the 4 basic rights that is given to you as a member of an organization. And so what you end up is people voting on something based on hearsay or partial information, and the whole underpinning of democracy is that you get to debate issues and weigh the pros and cons, and then make a vote, and this is the kind of thing that needs to stop. But again, if you don't have a record of it happening, it's hard for people to believe that members of the State Central Committee would even do that. And you should be able to take this back to your county for the State Central Committee member who has done this and say, hey, this is not acceptable behavior. You need to stop that, or we will replace you. We've had rulings by the chair, such as the one about who is a member of the Democratic Party of Oregon, and if you don't have a video recording of what was stated, it is hard to believe the logic employed in that discussion. So there's going to be a lot of opposition to this. It's being presented as a standing rule, which means that it could be suspended with a majority vote, but it's going to discourage people from recording in the first place. And who wants to go have a fight over whether or not you're going to record before you even start the meeting? So what the proposed video ban says: members, guests, or other attendees are not allowed to photograph delegates speaking at the floor microphones during State Central Committee meetings. This is to create an atmosphere free of intimidation during floor debates. DPO staff will take as many photos as possible during the meetings, which can be requested following adjournment. No video recording will be allowed during State Central Committee meetings except by DPO staff. I don't understand why anyone thinks that they should be intimidated. The person who submitted this rule was a chair of one of the major counties in Oregon, and so speaking publicly shouldn't be an issue for that person specifically. And anyone who wants to debate, your beliefs need to be put out there and assessed by members of the State Central Committee. So, if you have something to say in debate, you should say it. If you want to do something procedurally to something on the floor, other people need to know that you are doing this. And the benefit of having video recordings of this stuff is that, again, the Democratic Party of Oregon is less of a priesthood and a secret society, and something where more people can get involved if they see that their participation would be helpful. So on the next slides, I have listed the Rules Committee members that represent you across the state of Oregon, and I've listed their email addresses. And the great thing about videos is you can always come back to this and view this segment. So your 3 delegates from CD1, which is Northwest Oregon, is myself, Donna Nyberg, and Cindy Smith, and our 2 alternate delegates are Jeremy Likens and Garrett Fleenor. Jeremy and Garrett and Cindy are, well, Cindy's from Multnomah County, Jeremy and Garrett are from Washington County, Donna is from Columbia County, and I'm from Clatsop County. In CD2, you have Isabel Fleurod, and she is from Harney County, and you have Mark Cerny and Susan Church, who I believe are from Grant County. Your alternate delegates are Sara Spansale and Joe Tomlin, who are from Jackson County. In CD3, which is basically Multnomah County, your 3 delegates are Graham Parks, Michael Smith, and Travis Nelson, and your alternate delegates are Tom Sinsick and Quinton Blanton. In CD4, which is Southwestern Oregon, you have Celine Swenson Harris, Kevin Cronin. They are both from Lane County, and then Stephanie Newton, who I believe is Lynn County. And your alternate delegates are Ryan Kanowski and James Barber, both from Lane County. So 4 of the 5 delegates from Rules Committee are from Lane County. And in CD5, which is the sort of south of its middle Western Oregon, you have Mike Ellison, Belinda Ochoa, and Carrie Capon as your delegates, and your alternate delegates are Lowell Wetzel and Kate Greenfield. And all of them are from, I believe all of them are from Marion County. So unless you go to a CD meeting and they're there giving a report, you unless you're from Marion County, you're probably not getting privy to what's going on. And if you are not an SCC member from your county, then you would have very little opportunity to see what's going on. I'm going to continue covering the activities of the Rules Committees, so that if you have an opinion that you would like to express, because the delegates are representing you across the state in the committee, you can contact your representative and express your opinions. There are also some officers, in addition to the ones elected from the congressional districts. So the chair is appointed by the DPO chair, and the chair is Chris Wigg, again from Lane County. The vice chair is Rochelle Dixon from Multnomah County. The DPO chair appointee is Moses Ross, also from Multnomah County. And the rules chair appointee is Karina Perez Europa. And I'm not quite sure where she's from, possibly Marion County. But what you see from the distribution by counties is that there's only a small handful of counties that are represented on the Rules Committee, even though they're supposed to represent the congressional districts. Any questions on that, Betsy?
No questions from the audience, but I have a couple. You know, I'm not
Sure.
really involved in Democratic Party politics except at my local level. And all of our meetings are open to the public. Is that the same with a state central committee meeting?
It is open to the public. Someone cited the state law about recording in public meetings. It's my understanding that the Democratic Party of Oregon is a private organization, and they can make their own rules such as these, and they're not subject to those. Although I do have to go read the state law and see what the wording is. So there's some research there that I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's a good idea, because actually some years ago, and it's been way over 10 years now, that law was used, and actually an attorney general, deputy, or whatever they call them, assistant attorney general in Oregon told a group that I was involved in, which was a private group, that if we had meetings that were open to the public, members of the public could record our meetings.
Very interesting. Yeah, I will research that. And if this is counter to state law, then state law trumps it, and we can't even pass this standing rule inside the Central Committee. So it can't even be considered if it conflicts with state law.
And I have a question, because I'm in Douglas County, which is in CD4, and I don't see, it doesn't sound like many rural folks actually get to the Rules Committee. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, the only ones that are,
you?
well, I'm rural, and the CD2 people would be rural. I can't think of anyone. Yeah, everyone else seems to be from either Portland or the I-5 corridor.
Yeah.
Marion County, Lane County, or Multnomah County.
That's all the questions I have, and there's none from the audience.
Okay. Upcoming events. So a big one on, for those of you who are supporters of Bernie Sanders, on January 26th in Salem at the Willamette Heritage Center is going to be a summit that is being organized by Our Revolution. It's going to start at 1 p.m. and go to 2:30. The place seats about 300 people, but you're more than welcome to go. And it's open to anyone across the state who is a supporter of Bernie Sanders. There's going to be a full program of stories and involvement, and there'll be a number of groups doing tabling. And so it'll be a great way to network and find out and meet other people from across the state. I usually hate giving out cryptic domain names, but this one is fairly simple. So if you want to sign up for the event, go to mobilize.us/S as in Sam /3 capital M small letter P 4 small letter M capital L. And you can find the sign up form there for that. And also any information that they release on that between now and the 26th. So a big event for the Bernie Sanders. Also, there's a meet and greet for those of you who want to become national convention delegates for Bernie Sanders. If you would like to be invited to that, You can register at OregonForBernie.org. On the right-hand side, you can see what the webpage looks like. You just click on the black box at the bottom and submit your name. There's a number of ways for you to participate, which are outlined on the slide. It's a very complicated process, and we will continue talking about it. But this is a meet and greet. So for all the people who are interested in being delegates for Bernie Sanders, to meet other people who are running for the same position and get to know each other, what we will do is we will live stream the event. For those of you who are not in the Portland area, which is where the physical meeting is going to happen, and we will be talking a little bit about the convention and the process and how to become a delegate. And so we will be sharing information which delegates from across the state should be interested in finding out. So even if you're from Wallowa or from Deschutes County or from Jackson County, you do not have to drive to Portland to attend the meeting. You can just register for the meeting, and we will get you on the live stream. That'll be on February 9th between 5 and 7 p.m. And again, the physical meeting will be in the Portland metro area. So if you live in the Portland area, it would be great if you would come to the meeting so we can meet face to face. We are a tribe after all. If you would like to receive notices to these shows, you can sign up at advancementofdemocracy.org. And if you click on the button to receive notifications, then we will get you on the distribution list for these. We generally broadcast these shows on Sundays at 10 a.m. But as you've probably noticed, we did not do this in December. We took a month hiatus, and now we're cranking up for the new year with this show. And so if you'd like to receive notices, including the URL for the show itself, just sign up here and we will get you on the list. There are some key dates to be aware of. So March 10th is the PCP filing date for all the people who are running for the position of precinct committee person. If you are not familiar with this, this is the building block, the basic building block of the Democratic Party of Oregon, and what makes it a grassroots organization. We do not like for it to be a priesthood, so anyone who is a registered Democrat can file to run for precinct committee person, and odds are you will be elected from your precinct, and you can directly participate in your county's business and in the state's business, either directly or indirectly. The rules for precinct committee persons have changed slightly since the last time this was done. You no longer have to be a resident in the precinct that you are running from, so you can run from any precinct that is in your county and in your House district. So just check on those for qualifications. It means that many more people are eligible to be precinct committee persons with this change. They've also eliminated the gender requirement, and this is to accommodate non-binary gender classifications. And so the goal is for them to be balanced, but it's no longer 50% male, 50% female. The next date to remember is May 20th, which is the Oregon primary. This is when all of the votes will be counted for the candidates for president, and the proportioning of delegates to the convention will be calculated. Both the delegates to the state convention to do the elections for the at-large candidates, and to proportion the delegates going to the Democratic National Convention in July. So big date. Make sure you vote, and if you are supporting any of the candidates, I encourage you to get involved in their campaign so that they get as much support as possible. May 21st is the last date to register to be a delegate for the delegate selection conventions. The reason why this is one day later is if you are for a candidate who receives less than 15% of the votes on the primary, they will not be receiving an allocation of delegates. And so if you were a delegate for someone who's dropped from the receiving delegates, then you have one day to find a candidate that you want to support and refile and register for them. And you can possibly still go to the convention and participate. June 6th and 7th are the days for the congressional district conventions. I have not been informed of what congressional districts will be on which dates. The reason why they stagger them is because logistically it's a very big challenge, and they happen at 5 locations across the state, and it spreads the DPO staff very, very thin, and so this allows them 2 days in order to run all of this stuff. June 20th is the date of the state at-large convention, which is also not yet been released. I believe the last one was in Bend, but it also might have been out by the airport. Again, my memory is failing me, but that'll be elected. And so all of the delegates who are elected at the congressional district conventions to go to the state convention will go to the state convention and elect the final set of delegates to go to the national convention. Lots of use of the term delegate, but we try to use adjectives and modifiers so that the different distinctions of these types of delegates is clear. And then, of course, July 13th through the 18th is the Democratic National Convention, where the nominee for the Democratic Party will be determined if no candidate shows up with a majority. So that's it on upcoming dates. Very exciting news on the development of these shows. So Progressive Oregon will continue throughout 2020. The time will remain the same. We're going to be doing these at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Following the show, Oz will be doing we'll be producing the Progressive Washington show. So a show with a very similar format, talking about progressive issues in Washington, will happen at 11. So if you still would like to finish your breakfast watching live stream events, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you would like to see what's going on in Washington, you can check in later and catch the recorded version. We are making arrangements to do Progressive Alaska similarly, but that is not as evolved, so we do not know what date and time that will be presented on. Very exciting. We have Andrew Scott Becker, who is going to be the host for Progressive California, and that show will begin on the weekend of January 18th and 19th. We still need to pick a time for that to occur, but Andrew's got some great connections across Oregon, and he'll be bringing progressives in to talk about the issues going on and challenges within the California Democratic Party, and lots of good stuff from there. Oz has connections in Scotland, so since we're on the internet and we are a worldwide organization, and I know we have people from Germany and from Belgium who watch this show. We are going international, and we're going to have a Progressive Scotland show. The plan is to start in February. Would you like to say anything about that, Oz?
We just have a great group of, can you hear me?
Yes.
We have a great group of Gen Zers who are in school there. They are writing thesis, and they're getting their credentials, and they're going to be great activists in the future. They're really sharp individuals. We're really excited, and we hope to bring our Australian friends in with this too about the same time.
Very exciting. And finally, John is continuing with We the People. It's currently scheduled for 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings, so you can check in with that show and see what's going on. John is now based in Santa Clara. He's moved from Oregon, but because we're all on the internet, it's all virtual anyway. If you do not receive a URL for the shows, you can always find them at live.uphillmedia.org. So that lists both upcoming shows and past shows if you'd like to catch the ones that are more recent. So that is live.uphillmedia.org. The next slide, if you would like to donate to help financially support Uphill Media, you can do so at donate.uphillmedia.org. We are exploring the acquisition of an FM station, which opens up lots of possibilities for spreading information, and most exciting about that is it gives us access to FM stations in the rural parts of the state. So it provides a counter message to the, what is possibly counties that get just a lot of conservative messaging. And so this is something for all the progressive people out there to listen to. So if you would like to contribute to that, we would be more than happy to take your money. We need to raise, I believe, $5,000 in a very short period of time. There's going to be some information coming out soon about a GoFundMe campaign. And then if you'd like to send checks directly, you can, again, contact me at larry@uphillmedia.org, and I can tell you how to do that. That's it for today's show. Anything else you'd like to add, Betsy or Oz?
No.
No, I'm good, and thanks for everybody for putting up with my technical issues today. Larry, it was a great program, lots of information. Thank you for doing it.
My pleasure. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.